Welcome to the Plant Strong Cycling Podcast, dedicated to connecting cyclists in Northeast Arkansas and hopefully motivating you to be a happier cyclist. We have huge summer plans with lots of guests from the NEA area, but right now we are counting down the days to Unbound, and we have special guest, Andrew Onermaa. He's the Unbound XL Manager. So Andrew, he's an incredible cyclist, and we're going to get into some of his insane adventures and accomplishments. In this episode, he also provides pro tips on endurance riding, navigating the physical and mental challenges for the Unbound XL, and how to spend these last few weeks training before the event gets here. You're going to love this episode. Here we go. Oh, P.S. Nolan just got married. He's doing really well. He's on his honeymoon right now. And when he gets back, we're going to start his Century Ride training. So just want to let you know that Nolan's been MIA because he's been getting married. There's Nolan's story. All right, on to the episode. Hey, Andrew, thank you for taking my call today and for being on the podcast, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Andrew, tell me, how do you pronounce your last name?
Onermaa.
Onermaa.
But we're in the South, and so I was taught more like honor your ma, Onermaa. So I think Onermaa is a little bit more common on what my friends say. So Onermaa is usually what I hear. The Finns have a little bit more of an aggressive sounding, like Onermaa.
Oh, nice. There's two A's at the end?
There is two A's, yeah.
Okay.
So it's Finnish.
I saw that on Instagram and thought, I wonder if he had to add that extra A because there's another one out there, or if that's how he spells it. So now I know.
No, that's the actual spelling. Yep.
Well, that's probably anything anybody wants to know about on the podcast. So I'm just.
Yeah, I think we're all set.
Well, have a great day, man. Talk to you later.
Thanks. Yeah, good times.
No, hey, so we met at the Sandtown Shuffle in 2023, and I was ahead of you at one point. And it was almost a joke because I think you pretty much treated the whole thing as a neutral rollout pace, and you still murdered everybody because you have such a massive engine. But after the race was over, or beforehand, Bobby was bragging on you about how you're going to take all the segments that day, and you're the biggest hitter coming, and how excited he was to have you in the area. You got there, you just pretty much kept it in like low zone 1 and you smoked everybody. And then afterwards, we sat around a campfire and I got to know you and I was like, this dude's amazing. So, and during that conversation, you told me about like the hydration pack to go with USWE. And so I did.
Yeah.
I did, and it was awesome. And you also told me to learn to do everything on the bike. That way you're not sitting around getting food at Unbound, like you're off your bike. You just basically want to be riding because you want to get to the finish line. And so, absolutely, dude, that was like the best. Those are the two of the most helpful things that I definitely leaned on during last year's Unbound. So, anyways, so a lot of these conversations so far in the podcast have been leading up to Unbound. So you have a pretty big role this year. Like, is it the same as last year? What's your?
It is the same as last year. So last year, like, it was contract work, and I think the way it was labeled was Unbound XL Manager, and I do a little bit of communications leading up to the event, not so much with participants. That's all the Lifetime team, but I'm more so communicating with the Lifetime team directly and track leaders. So Matthew Lee over at Track Leaders, and working with last year is Ben Sachs. This year it's actually Sean Thurman is stepping in as the race director. And then also Michael Melly, he's the VP of Lifetime Operations and some of the other teams. So some communications leading up to it. And then I'm there for check-in. This year, it sounds like we're actually doing a writers meeting in the Granada Theater the night before. I don't know if you've been getting the emails. Have you seen anything about that yet?
Yeah, I saw to be there on Thursday. I can't remember what time, but I do remember seeing it was Thursday.
Cool. So I don't even know what time it is yet. So that kind of shows I'm not in there for all the communications, but, I think that'll be a combo of Sean and myself up there. And as far as the event itself, after getting everybody checked in, squared away, making sure trackers are good to go, whether it's personal or rentals, I am staring at dots like a madman, updating the drops, seeing who's scratched, kind of just like cleaning that map up consistently throughout the entire race. And then I'm at the finish line, collecting rental trackers, greeting some riders in, and that's about the extent of it. So I'm not designing the course or anything. That's been a lot of years of particular people that live in the area, piecing those together, going back north again. So I'm more of just like during the event itself, I help run that race distance discipline. That way the race director can focus on the big show of the 200 and the 100 and all the other million things they have to do during the event.
So did I understand right that Ben Sachs is not the race director this year?
Correct. It's going to be Sean Thurman. He is out of the St. Louis area, I believe. And he's stepping in for this and also Little Sugar and Big Sugar.
Oh,
and
cool.
then beyond this year, I don't know if it's going back to Ben or not. I don't really don't know all the details, but yeah, a little bit of a shift. And so Sean was definitely eager to have me back, since he didn't really know much about how the XL runs. And he's just like, well, I know Andrew's solid and he did it last year, so let's just let him keep doing it. So yeah.
Does Ben not being there have anything to do with last year's drama and people complaining?
I really don't know. I don't have anything to speak on with that. It was just very simply saying, hey, it's going to be Sean running the show this year. So maybe they'll make a little bit more of an official statement. Maybe it's just, sometimes life happens. Maybe
Sure.
Ben has some stuff going on and then he'll be right back into the swing of things next year. You never know with people's personal lives. There's all kinds of stuff going on.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, my experiences with Ben
we'll see. Time will tell.
Yeah, my experiences with Ben were all positive. So, I hope it's a temporary thing, but yeah, you're managing the XL, and how hard is it to do that role instead of actually going out there and racing it yourself? Because you've done some crazy competitive rides, right?
I'm actually, I really do enjoy the ultra distance, the 24-hour style ride and longer. But to be honest, it's such a different style course than what I really get excited about, that I'm actually quite okay with it, because it's a way for me to still be involved with the community and get to hang out. I actually get paid, so it helps cover. I don't have to pay out of my own pocket to go hang out. I get to be paid to be there and hang out with the community, and I get plugged in more with the lifetime crew, which can always open up more opportunities. So there's a little bit during the race where I'm like, oh man, so exciting. It'd be so fun to be in the pace line, trading pools with everybody. But the fact of the matter is, this 350 distance it's so competitive on a course like that, where it comes down just to sheer power. It's almost a road race on gravel for the front of the pack. And so I mean, realistically, I'm maybe a top 20 type of athlete for something like that, to where it's that tough middle ground where it's like, I can't be competitive, but I still want to try hard. So it kind of helps me to lean in more to the events that I really like the most. And so it kind of almost helped me draw a line and say, okay, not every race is going to be the style of race that I'm drawn to or excel at. And so it's cool. It's like I get to kind of be a fan in a way, and also get to be the one helping run it. So I thoroughly enjoy it. Last year, I was watching everybody's Instagram stories too, to kind of like get updates of the course. That's like one of the best ways to see how the race is going. And then Lifetime crew was out there, so I'm getting some photos. So it's just kind of like fully immersed into watching this more long form race take place. So I think if it was a race that I truly wanted to race, I would be racing it instead of working it. It's kind of my short answer.
Well, I think that's a great answer. The way Bobby explained who you were to me was saying that, I think it was Arkansas High Country. That's a race, right?
It is. Yeah.
You were in it, and you were in second place for a long time, giving Ted King a run for his money. And at that time, when he told me, I didn't even know who Ted King was. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool, man. Like, if you're number 2 in a race, you must be incredible. And now on this side of things, I'm like, okay, if you can compete against Ted King, that means you're ready for the Tour de France in my book. So yeah,
not even close. And so, the longer the distance, the more variables there are, that's when it starts level the playing field a lot more. And I think that's one of the biggest draws to these long distance races and challenges is that, essentially the longer it is, more can go wrong. Mental side of things becomes a bigger aspect. And especially when it gets long enough, sleep becomes a big part of it. So if you're willing to push the boat out further on sleep deprivation than some others, then even if someone's physically stronger than you, you can be stronger in the overall race just because you're willing to play some additional cards that they're not willing to play. So it becomes almost like a game of chess. And, you can always be working on your fitness over time and keep getting stronger and stronger, but it's all those other components that maybe other people don't want to work on or they don't focus on as much.
So speaking of all of that, how do you navigate risks? Like during rough terrain, night riding, scary descents, sleeping, not sleeping, how do you navigate all that?
I think part of it's you don't know till you try. So I wouldn't necessarily say you need to go pull an all-nighter before Unbound XL. That's probably not the best training, but if this is your first time to ever ride through the entire night, sleep deprived, it's kind of like you just have to try it and see what happens. Of course, you can try your lighting beforehand. It's worth having, a good light on the handlebars and probably a supplementary light on your helmet. Even if you don't have that light on your helmet on a ton, you're going to end up wanting that light on your helmet for shuffling through your bags and doing different things with the bike. It's even finding your food as you're riding. So that second light's actually really important, and having a little bit of practice of night riding on, okay, can I be bouncing around on gravel, look down to my feed bag or my half frame bag or whatever you're using, pull a snack out, open up the packaging, eat the snack, throw away the trash, all while riding and keep going. So there's part of that is like a lot of repetition, and the sleep deprivation part, everybody kind of handles it differently. And I think each time you surprise yourself, then the next time you're in that scenario, you can do at least that. And so that's what really happens. So like say Unbound XL is the first time someone pulls an all-nighter riding their bike and they finish the race, and that's awesome. Then it's like, okay, if I ever do a race where maybe I have to ride through the night a second night, I know I can ride through the night once. I bet I can ride at least through part of the next night. And then part of it's just, you got to keep slowly pushing out that comfort zone and see what you can do. And from the safety perspective, it's just, people will basically ride until they're almost falling asleep on the bike. Like once you start dozing off or you're almost like closing your eyes while you're riding, then that's kind of the time to hop off the bike and maybe take a 10-minute nap. I think a lot of people are surprised when they hear it, but if you just feel so tired that you can't keep awake and you're starting to think that safety is an issue, set a 10 or 20-minute alarm on your phone, lay down, and when that thing goes off, you might jolt wide awake and feel like it's a new day, or you might just be so destroyed. You're like, okay, let me do another 30 minutes. And then you just kind of have to play it out that way. But I think a lot of people are more capable than what they think. And sometimes it takes that really exciting environment of an event like this to try it for the first time. And the thing is, you're not out there alone. There's a good chance you're going to see lights in front of you and a lights behind you, maybe even someone right next to you. And that always helps when you're not the only one doing it. It kind of helps with the morale and the adrenaline and everything like that.
What do you do if you need to take a nap? You just pull over the side of the road and pray to God you don't run into a snake during that time? Or what's the secret?
Yeah, I don't think too much about wildlife. I've done some races like across the entire state of Colorado, and it's just, you're so tired that like, basically you're at the point where you're so tired that you just don't care anymore and you lay down. You can look around for a little bit and be like, okay, I'm not laying down straight into an ant pile and there's not a ton of thorns here or whatever. But I think if you're trying one of these micro naps, one of the best things to do is keep your helmet on, to almost use it as a pillow to prop your head up a little bit. And, yeah, you can just have your cell phone resting right on your chest, and alarm goes off, you turn it off, you already have your helmet on, you have your clothes on, you stand up, stand your bike up, start pedaling again. I think it's really either, if you're kind of scared about an area and you're awake enough, you're going to end up going past it and keep going until you're comfortable enough with the spot to stop. Or the alternative is you're going to be so tired that you just don't care and you're going to stop where you stopped.
I feel like because you told me all that, now I'm going to have to, now that's going to happen to me, which, you know, is great because now I'll be less scared. So I do have one more.
You know, it's like, you can, like, if you know there's, say, a small little church or community center, you're like kind of getting close to where you may want to take a nap, or say there's a small town where there's a playground or some stuff like that, where that always feels a lot better mentally, just because it's a very familiar environment. You feel like you're in civilization. So sometimes it's like, if you're really on the cusp of maybe I need a nap soon, like, you know what, actually I'm going to stop right now in this little town instead of ride for another 30 minutes and then be doing it in a ditch. So there is that consideration where I think people can get a little bit better of a nap in because they just feel a little bit more comfortable. The only downfall of that is, like, if you happen to do that and then there's a barking dog next door and they don't stop barking the whole time,
sure.
or it's a spot where cars still drive by, that might wake you up. But yeah, it's one of those things where you just don't really know until you try.
What motivates you to keep riding when the ride gets tough? Because like I said, you've done some incredible endurance things that I can only dream of doing. And what's your, you can even say what's your secret to endurance, but what motivates you?
Well, there's two answers to it. The first one is, you got to be drawn to what the event is or the route is, whatever it may be. There's that initial draw of wanting to do that. It's never because it's easy. You're not like, oh my gosh, that looks so cool because it looks so easy. Like, that doesn't ever go together.
I've never thought about that, but that is true. Yeah.
It looks cool because maybe part of it's the terrain, or part of it's the community, or it's just the sheer magnitude of the challenge. There's something about it that you're drawn to it, and there's a reason you sign up for it, especially if you have to pay money for it. Then there's another whole layer of, like, I am actively paying money for something that I know is not going to be easy, and I have to commit a bunch of time and energy and probably even more money leading up to it. And so, for one, if I'm doing a long endurance effort, it's because, for one, I was drawn to it. And a lot of times for me, it's the route itself at this point in the game. Early on, it was just more so the challenge of, I want to see if I can ride X distance or X number of miles. But then after you do that enough times, it starts shifting more towards, well, I really want to see that route. And, like, maybe I don't have time to tour it over the course of a week or 2 weeks. Maybe the only way I can fit it into my life schedule is if I literally do it in 3 days. And if I'm going to do it in that style, I might as well do it during an event while other people are doing it and pushing hard. So yeah, the first part is, it's like, you just got to be drawn to whatever it is. And for something like Unbound XL, I think it is for a lot of people, like, for one, just the event is cool. People want to go be a part of that event. And then it's also just like, I have never done an all-nighter before on the bike. I really want to see what that's like. And the other part is just knowing what your goal is before you start. So, like, okay, you have the initial draw, you sign up, you go do whatever it is. Whenever you're lining up for it, whether it's a solo ride or it's a group ride or race or whatever, it's, okay, what's actually my goal? And I think that's the really important part that people tend to overlook. Is the goal to complete the route first and foremost? Is the goal to see what you're capable of? Is the goal to be as competitive as possible and potentially win? And so if your goal is to finish the route, that's a pretty clear goal. You know, if you need to sleep for 5 hours in the night and you still can make the cutoff, then sure, you get whatever place, but you completed your goal. If your goal is, I just want to see how far I can push myself. You don't necessarily have to finish the route to push yourself to the limit. And so it's like, I don't know. I think people beat themselves up a lot mentally during these rides. And it's because they just start questioning, why am I out there? Why am I doing this? And so the more you can really lean into going into the ride, why am I doing this? It's going to help you in the darkest moments, both like literally, but also figuratively, on why are you doing it? And so in the past, I've been a little too hung up on, well, I'm doing this because I want to be competitive and I want to make a name for myself and I want to be able to play against the best. And like, if your race isn't going well and all of a sudden it's hour 10 and you know there's absolutely no shot for you to podium, then that absolutely destroys your mental game for the rest of the ride. And the fact is, it's like, for that person, finishing may not be the goal at all. Like, hey, I have 4 more ultras this year and I am feeling way off. Maybe I do need to drop and start training again earlier and like recover. And it is what it is. That's okay. Like, I'm not one to say that like, oh, just willy-nilly drop a race. But if someone's goal is to try to podium at an ultra this year and they get borderline heat exhaustion at the first ultra of the year, either you have to readjust your goal for the ride or you just have to accept that. And then same thing, if your goal is to finish the route no matter what in the given time frame, then yes, there's going to be a point where you might be riding 4 miles an hour for 5 hours straight. And you're like, this is never going to end. You don't just quit because you're going 4 mile an hour average. It's you keep riding until that time cutoff. You just never know. Like, the wind can change, the conditions can change. If your goal is to try to finish the route in time frame, you ride until that time frame is up. And if you don't finish it, then it's up to you to make that call. Some people, like last year, they still kept riding anyway. They didn't make the time cutoff, but their goal was to finish the route no matter what. And we were still up late applauding and clapping for those people. They weren't considered official finishers.
Dude, I love that so much.
You bet your ass that they actually rode that whole course.
Yeah, they did.
So, yeah, you just gotta really lean into why are you doing it. And so that's what like keeps me going. That's what keeps me motivated. Sometimes you do need a plan B goal. And so maybe having a light plan B goal. And that could be, okay, I want to ride through the night. I really like, my number one goal is, of course, I want to finish. But on top of that, I want to see if I can ride through the entire night. It's like, okay, you know what? I can't ride through the whole night. I have to take a nap. Well, that's okay. I can still finish the route. It doesn't mean like your whole ride is crushed because you had to take a nap when you were planning on not taking a nap. So it's just, things are going to go wrong. You can't plan everything out. Being adaptable is very important. But yeah, for me now, it's like my main motivators are usually the route or the event itself. And usually if I'm going to want to try super hard, it's like the competition on top of that. And I still have just as much respect for the people that they're coming in 1 minute before the finish as I do the people that are like podiuming. Everybody's doing a really hard ride. It's just everyone's doing it for different reasons.
Real quick, you started a new job this year.
Did.
And what is it exactly?
I am the bike program manager at Horseshoe Canyon Ranch. So brand new bike program that's starting up. There were horses for the longest time. Horses are gone. Management has swapped up, and now there's a lot of mountain bike trails being built out here. And so we have a rental fleet of e-mountain bikes, and we have all these trails being built. And basically we're trying to figure out how to develop a program out here that integrates bikes. So It's
That's
right
incredible.
Here at the very beginning of it. And it's right in the center of the Ozarks where like my favorite gravel riding is already. And now there's like some phenomenal single track right on the job property, you know? So right now it's a combo of like doing some trail maintenance, coordinating with the trail crew on what phases are next, and giving feedback on like, hey, actually we need some more beginner areas over here, and like, hey, can you revisit this berm a little bit? I've ridden it a few times and it seems like it's not going to hold up for the next year, stuff like that. And then it's also planning some events, like what can we do to get people out here on bikes? And so there's a lot of different elements to it, but it's very early on right now.
That sounds like a dream job. Is that your dream job?
I think so.
Awesome.
Time will tell, but I think it absolutely has the potential for it. So yeah, it's a work in progress, and I'm definitely very excited to be here and living in Newton County, and just being surrounded by basically the best cycling for me that Arkansas has to offer.
What's the closest town that you'd consider your part of?
Jasper, Arkansas. So like Horseshoe's right between Ponca and Jasper, Arkansas.
All right.
So you got the Buffalo National River here. You got kind of like the main area everyone goes to for if they're going to float on the Buffalo. It's basically right here. It's a world-class climbing destination with over 500 climbing routes. Yeah, it's just the hills are massive. The landscape is incredible. It's definitely the most mountainous feeling area of anywhere in the Ozarks, or in Arkansas for that matter.
And did you personally like host or put on the Doom and Despair races?
Yes, this was year 3 of putting on the Doom race.
Okay.
Added Despair, a shorter option, but yeah, that's my creation, my event. Just really wanting to highlight a ton of phenomenal roads and places to check out in the area.
So my buddy Charles, who works at Gearhead in Jonesboro, I rode with him recently on a training ride, and he's incredibly talented. Like, he's really good at handling the bike. He's got a lot of power, a lot of endurance. Just a really good cyclist. When he told me how long it took him to do the 200 miles, I couldn't believe it. I was like, is there like sharks out there or something? Like, what is slowing people down so badly? So does that just go into what you were saying earlier about like Unbound is one type of race? It's almost like a road race, whereas Doom and Despair have, like, I guess more of a technical aspect. Where
absolutely,
you just can't. There's just no way to do it in any kind of fast time.
Yeah, the technical aspect, and then the elevation. Elevation is always a big part of what would like slow down a course time. So if it's just a significant amount of vert, that's going to slow things down, surface type, everything like that. So for me, that's even more fun, because at this point, I just don't have the sheer power to compete with a lot of the top athletes. But if you add some different elements where it's like, you got to be a really good bike handler, you got to be able to stay alert in the middle of the night while you're going down all these descents that could kill you, and like then it's like, okay, this is a very wild, engaging game for me, and that's when it starts to level the playing field a little bit too.
So last year is the last question. Then I swear I'm going to switch to personal questions to benefit my ride. With what all happened in the XL race and all that had a DNF for various mechanicals and like running out of fuel and being stuck in the mud, if you had done the race, what do you think where would you have placed?
I think I still would have been like, I think I would have been like maybe top 10. Just because a lot of the front runners did end up dropping out for various reasons. So it was like, some like Ted King, for instance, was like, well, I have the Tour Divide coming up and I don't want to dig this deep right now. I'm going to it's like, I know what it's like to hike for 10 miles in the mud. I would rather do that during the Divide than do it right now.
Sure.
So you have some athletes like that dropped that would have like definitely beat me. You have some athletes that were like really strong and determined, but they brought the wrong equipment that just like absolutely exploded, or they didn't know how to take care of their bike at all, and then they had to drop out. So yeah, like maybe optimistically like top 10. Like I think Luke Hall was third. Luke Hall's a guy that moved back to Arkansas. He was in Arkansas for quite a while. I know he's definitely a stronger rider than me, especially in that kind of terrain, because it's like rolling and flat. So your watts per kilo doesn't matter as much. It's more about just sheer power. And there's no race where it's sheer power where I would beat him. And he's stubborn enough with those different elements to where he was able to like stay cool and collected and pull off a really awesome race, which was cool. Yeah. So like maybe top 10. Like I did Gravel World's Long Voyage last year, which is basically very similar style roads to Kansas. And it's 350, and I got like 7th place at that one, but it's not as competitive as the Unbound XL.
I have no doubt you could have done top 10. I'm not sure who all, I don't know the racers like you do, but just looking back at what all I heard and saw from last year, I just thought, man, I really wish Andrew would have been in it, because that would have been awesome.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's a little bit of my anti-style, but I can still stick it out pretty tough and do decently. A lot of it does come down to your training block leading up to it and everything too, which I think you definitely were wanting to touch on that.
Yeah. So, okay, real quick, here's what I'm doing for my tires, and you can rapid fire answer these. You don't have to expound too much, but unless you just want to. But you mentioned the Thunderbird 2.1. My plan is to throw that on my front and then keep the Thundero 48 on the back. Is that insane?
You know, man, actually I've ridden more with the Thunderbirds, and even with their more durable casing, I think it's still a little too light of a casing. I took them off recently. I think it's still just a little too supple of a casing to where you're going to be pretty susceptible to sidewall tears. So I think the volume, yes, what you're saying, like a 2.1 in the front, 48 in the rear, that's pretty good. But I think you got to go more durable casing than the Thunderbird. I think for your area where you're at, that's a ripping, fun, awesome tire in a lot of places in Arkansas. But that Flint, everyone's always talking about the Flint Rock and how notorious it is for shredding tires. I think you do have to truly go to a more durable tire. So even though it's fast rolling and it's good volume, I think that sidewall, after putting it through the ringer a little bit more, is not quite up to the task, especially for the 350 where you're riding through the night and your line choice might not be as ideal as you want it to be.
Well, one thing I took for granted last year was that where I was in the pack, it was pretty much all dug out and flat and smooth. And I keep thinking that's not going to be the case this year, because there's still going to be 100+ people ahead of me, but it's not going to be 1,000 people ahead of me. So
totally
a different terrain.
Yeah, you're going to get in some stuff where it's like some proper chunky double track, where it's downhill enough too to where you're not getting your like perfect line, and there's rocks sticking in every direction. I think like a durable cross-country style mountain bike tire is still what I would recommend. Do you got
a specific brand and tire recommendation?
A lot of it comes down to tire clearance. What can you fit in the front?
It's cleared for 50.
Clears for 50. So, okay, there's a 2-part question also, or a 2-part answer. It comes down to weather as it gets closer. If it's going to end up being really muddy again, if you're running too big of a tire, then you are gunking up your whole system, and you're not going to be able to move those tires at all.
Yeah.
So if it's relatively dry, you're going to go a big tire. You could still fit a 50 or 2.1. Something I liked was the Pirelli Cinturato. I think it's still considered a gravel tire, but it's got a durable casing that I've just smacked on all kinds of stuff. It's a 50C tire. And then for the rear, is it saying the clearance is like 47?
It's 50 as well.
50. Put a 50 in the rear, unless it's going to be muddy. Put a 50 in the rear.
Okay. I ran 50s last year, and I only had to clean it 2 or 3 times.
Okay.
So I was really fortunate. I will say that. But
okay, cool. if you're trying to squeeze out every last marginal gain, maybe 50s could be a little too big, but it still comes down to your stoppage time, especially in the 350 is far more important than gaining like 2 extra watts per hour for a slightly faster tire.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have any affiliation with Pirelli, but that's like one tire that I used for almost a year straight in the 50C, and I rode that across Colorado, north to south Colorado in an event, and held up very well. So, yeah, I think that'd be a really good one to look at, and I can send you a link to it because they have a few different variations, but it's like the M, I believe, for like mixed surface.
Okay. Yeah, shoot me that if you don't mind. That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Hey, okay, next question. Overpack or underpack, like the food, water, and all that stuff. So I noticed that the course has more stops than usual. So I have this 3-liter bladder, but it's super heavy whenever it's full. And I'm just wondering, like, should I avoid filling it up to the max for the sake of being more comfortable, or should I fill it up in case I need water?
Are you carrying bottles as well, or only the pack?
I was thinking about carrying 1 bottle.
So for your 1 bottle, you're definitely going to want to put some kind of mix in it then.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think the 3 liters that's a lot, man.
Yeah.
What's the longest stretch between resupplies?
I think there's a 50-mile one, like between 75 and 125. I think that's the longest one. But I'd have to.
So that's going to be that'd be
through the night,
the heat of the day there, you know.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah. You're right.
Going in towards the evening, I would say for the longest stretch, definitely don't start with 3 liters, because you should just like hydrate well leading up to the race start, which is midday. Hydrate well, rest well all day leading up to it. You know, maybe do 2 liters on your back with the bottle to start, and then pace accordingly. Don't go out like a bat out of hell. Like, be going at a very manageable pace. And then for that longest stretch, fill the 3 liters to the brim, have your bottle. And then I think that's going to help you figure out for the rest of the ride. You know, sometimes it just depends on the ride for me. Like, oh, this is the first time I've actually had to deal with 90-something degree weather this year. Turns out I need all 3 liters of that.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which could very well happen at this point. The weather's been being super cool here.
And being exposed to the sun the whole time is another big part of it, is you're like basically never in the shade. And so, that'd be my advice, is like, don't start with the full 3 liters, because you should just be hydrating well up to the start. So start with maybe 2/3 of it plus your bottle. And then, that will help you also before you get to that resupply. You'll know, you're like, hey, actually my last hour, I was kind of sipping on it a little bit more than I wanted to. I wish I was taking bigger pools of water. Then that's going to help you make an educated decision on your first resupply. So
okay,
kind of got to play it by ear. I think it's good you have the capacity for that. I would say 3 liters minimum in total is a good idea. So the fact that you got 3 liters plus a bottle, I think that's solid. So
yeah, and I was thinking about throwing an extra bottle in my bag, just to have, like, so it wouldn't be accessible. But I mean, I could obviously hop off and swap it. But
do you have where you can mount a bottle underneath the down tube? Do you have the 2 bolts down there?
No.
Okay.
I wish I should. I have a Grizzle. I think it would.
Yeah. The bag. Are you doing a half frame bag or a full frame bag? I guess it'd be a wedge.
It's like a half frame, and it prevents the other bottle from going in.
I'd probably lean more towards food in your bag than a bottle, just because a bottle takes up so much space. Maybe what I would do is, you know, those like collapsible flasks.
Yep.
Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Get a collapsible flask and just shove it in your rear jersey pocket or in your bag or something. And that's a way where you can carry, you know, like another 750 milliliters. I think it's kind of like a standard size of one of those, or maybe 500 milliliters. Takes up almost no space. If you don't need to use it, maybe there's one stretch you use it, and that goes into a back jersey pocket pretty easily. underneath the pack. It's going to feel heavy with 3 liters plus that, but it's going to keep you motivated to keep drinking too. So I would opt for that instead of 1 bottle in the frame bag. If you don't have one, I even have some extras, and I could give it to you and check in.
I may take you up on that if I show up without it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks,
Cool.
man. I'm thinking about riding my top end zone 1 and low end zone 2 for the whole ride. Would that be dumb? And that's just based off like seeing people explode out of the gate and they go really hard.
Yes.
And I don't want to get sucked into that. But I also want to get some miles behind me before the night gets there. But I don't know. It's pacing myself.
Is that based on power or based on heart rate?
I do based on power.
Okay. I would say for the first few hours, actually base it on heart rate instead of power. And I like power a lot, but again, conditions are part of it. And if for whatever reason, say you've been doing pretty good at staying in that power zone, but it's excessively hot, or say your heart's just pumping harder because of some adrenaline plus dodging riders early on or terrain or whatever it may be, like ultimately, if your heart's been working harder than it needs to for those first few hours in the heat of the day, then that's going to affect your entire ride. As much as I love power, I think for the long distance stuff, heart rate is better to be looking at, because there's going to get to a point where no matter what, zone 1 power is the only thing you're going to be able to put out anyway. That happens to me too, even in like a 24-hour race. There'll be a time frame where like for an hour or two, I'm like, dude, all I can do is like my upper end of zone 1 or low end zone 2. Like your body has this weird ebb and flow where at times you're going to be feeling good. At times you're not going to be feeling so good. I think early on, if you give yourself the favor of treating your body right, that like throughout the night, if you're feeling good, yeah, jam it out for a little bit, pedal a little bit harder. But I think your heart rate's still going to be reflecting that. Like if your legs are feeling good in the night, be excited about that, and don't like be like, now's my time to pedal like even harder and like be focused on like, oh, I'm going to hang in low zone 2 for quite a while now. It's like, as far as that ultimately being your goal, I think that's awesome, but pay attention to that heart rate too. Now if like there's a little bit of a gap to where you could be riding with some people, that'd be like the one exception. Like if you're in no man's land and you're like, man, if I'm riding 3 beats higher, I'm out of my zone, but it means you can close the gap and actually be able to ride with some people. There's a big thing to be said about the morale boost of being around people and having some conversation, or even if you're not talking, just the fact of riding with people. Mm-hmm. So don't be so strict to it to where it's shutting down opportunities to ride with people some, because I think that ends up helping the morale and mental game a lot.
Yep.
But definitely at the beginning, you just let it go. And you know what helps a ton is when you're passing people through the night. That's one of the best feelings in the world.
Oh, yeah.
You're able to restrain yourself, you're going to be passing people through the night, and then that's going to be such an extra boost for you. So yeah, look into those heart rate zones and pay attention to that, because sometimes your heart rate zones and your power zones just don't match up the way you want it to. So yeah, take that into consideration.
Hey, what's the perfect amount of time to be hanging out at each gas station and rest stop?
I think 15 minutes is a long time. 15 minutes is when you're treating yourself.
Yeah.
Anything beyond that, your body's going to want to start shutting down. Your brain's going to want to start shutting down. All kinds of things. It's okay to sit on a curb for a little bit, take your shoes off. If your feet are killing you, take your shoes off for a little bit, put down a full drink, eat some kind of hot food that you don't want to carry with you. But especially in these bigger events, there'll be like 25 people all at the gas station at the same time. And it's so easy to just like get sucked into like just sitting in a big group with people, and like then you start hearing other people complaining about this and that, and then it kind of starts getting in your head. And yeah, you can do an absurd amount of stuff in 15 minutes. Now it's like you just absolutely have to take this like ungodly poop that takes way longer than you want. It is what it is. Like, you need to let your body do what your body needs to do. But yeah, you should be able to walk in calmly and already have an idea of like the things you want and how much you need. Start grabbing those things, get up to the counter within a few minutes, pay for your stuff, walk outside, sit down if you want, drink a full drink, eat a slice of pizza, start putting things in your bike as you're doing all this. Like, I'll usually be standing up and like, I'll wipe off my chain, clean it up, re-lube it as I'm working on a bottle of soda and eating a piece of pizza, and then let the lube sit for a second, and then refilling all your bottles and your hydration vest. You can be doing all that as you're still like eating the food you don't want to carry and the drinks you don't want to carry. And yeah, so I'd say 15 minutes is kind of like that comfortable zone of, you don't need to be in a rush. There's really not a reason to be in a rush, but you can be accomplishing a lot the whole time you're there without feeling like you're in a rush.
Yes, I like that. And I do have a bad habit of, I just don't stop a lot whenever, because I ride by myself mostly, but when I'm with other groups, we stop way sooner than I would normally want to. Like every 15, 20 miles. And I'm like, guys, if we sit here too long, my left leg is going to start hurting, or my right leg, or something else is going to start giving me problems. Like, I need to get back on the bike and go. But I've also never been in a situation where it's like, okay, I got 250 miles left, so I've got to take care of my bike. Thank you for saying all that is what I'm trying to get at. So that's a good pro tip. All right, last question. So I've been pretty much burned out for the past 2 weeks. The past few days have been a lot better, but dude, for 2 weeks it was just a pain in the butt to get on the bike, and I know it's because I've been overtraining. But any suggestions on how to prepare at this point if I do feel unmotivated?
I mean, first of all, for the most part, you know, the saying goes, the hay is in the barn. So we're about 2.5 weeks out. Most of the work has already been done. You don't want to go into something like this over fatigued. It's better to be a little too fresh versus a little too tired for something like this. What, like in general, like if it's a good week, do you have like amount of hours per week or TSS that you like to shoot for? Like what's that normal week training load?
Well, I just jumped back on Trainer Road for the past 3 weeks, and I don't think that's because I did the where you ride hard one day and you pretty much just do endurance ride the other 5.
Yep.
I can't even think of what it's called, but
kind of like a polarized approach, basically.
Yes, but I've been doing that unstrategically since mid-December. And so most weeks are like, 8 to 10 hours on the bike, 100 to 150. I had one week where I had almost 200 miles, but that for the most part, that's kind of where my sweet spot has been.
I would say if you can still get like at least 5 quality hours this week and next week of either trainer miles where you're never coasting, even if it's all zone 2 endurance rides, you really don't need to do any intensity at this point, but keep the volume going. So bang for your buck with time. Definitely trainer road is going to be efficient, but with your area, with it being pretty flat, you can also knock that out outdoors. So it just kind of depends on.
I've been doing that, and it's actually been really motivating these past few days to be outside doing Trainer Road and
cool.
Some of the harder efforts.
What I would do is, if you are riding outside, don't do a Trainer Road workout. Just know what your zone 2 is and be like, I'm going to ride in zone 2 the whole time.
Okay.
Just as simple as that. I'm giving myself 2 hours a day to ride, or an hour and a half, or whatever it is. I'm going to ride zone 2 that whole time. I know that means I need to be at least over X number of watts. And it's as simple as that. Just glancing down every once in a while, being like, am I over that? Cool. Good. If you start dipping below it, be like, okay, let's pick it back up a little bit. So, yeah, no reason to get like so specific to where it's okay. I'm going to do 190 watts for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to bump down to 160 for 5 minutes, and then back to 190. Nothing like that. Just keep it zone 2. Yeah, I wouldn't even really think much of doing intensity. It'd be like if you had an area that's more hilly, or if you just have some segments that you think are fun, just kind of like treat it as some openers. Just like, I'm going to ride zone 2 and I'm going to throw in a hard tempo or threshold effort for a little while and then settle back into zone 2. I think that's really good too. Just because there's definitely some kickers in Kansas where you're going to be forced to leave zone 2. There's going to be parts of the course where it is really steep for a little bit, and you're going to be forced to go higher than threshold on your power or close to threshold. And so in training, it's to like at least incorporate that every once in a while.
Sure.
Like, you don't want to only be doing zone 2 to where your body's absolutely shocked that it's got to try harder than zone 2 8 hours into the ride or something like that. So if you want to do any kind of intensity, incorporate it into those zone 2 rides where it's, okay, I'm going to try harder because I like this hill where I live, or here's a segment that's cool or whatever. Like, you don't really need to overcomplicate it or be scientific at this point because you're so close to the event. So just have at least a day or two where you're like, I'm feeling good. Like, if your legs feel flat after trying 2 or 3 of those, then just stay in zone 2 the rest of the ride. Like, don't push it. But if your legs are feeling pretty good and receptive, then throw a few of those efforts in. Kind of like a 30-second to 2-minute range. That's what like most of the climbs would be. Mm-hmm. Maybe even more like 15 seconds to 2 minutes. But those kinds of efforts, and then being able to settle straight back into zone 2 again and be holding zone 2 power, stuff like that's going to be good training. Just like basically at this point, you just got to keep the legs moving. Don't overthink it. Don't overtrain, and sleeping the best you can the last few nights leading up to the event. When you get to Emporia, do one fun shakeout ride of an hour or so just to like see what air pressure you like on the gravel out there and that kind of thing. But it's almost better to like let that excitement build back up again. So if you're feeling slightly burnt out from putting in so much work, go easy on yourself for a little bit. And then by the time it's race time, you're going to be so excited to go ride your bike. You're like, we're here. Like I've been only kind of on the trainer and doing a little bit. Now I'm so excited for this big long ride versus like, man, I did Perkins -1 3 times last week. And I did Baxter +2 or whatever, you know, like, you don't want to get too lost in the numbers and the specifics to where you start losing sight of what the actual ride is going to be.
Yeah, that's really good advice, man. When are you getting there to Emporia?
Maybe late Wednesday night, maybe earlier Wednesday. I'm still kind of trying to figure out that when I can leave work.
Sure.
But definitely by late Wednesday night, and then some check-in Thursday plus that riders meeting, and then more last-minute check-in Friday, and then grand depart Friday afternoon. And I'll be there till Sunday at some point. I might actually stay one more night and then go do a long ride on Monday. Just that way I can get a long ride in the area too. So if I go that far, I might as well bring my bike and get a fun ride in a different area while I'm there.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited for you. Think you're going to learn a lot about yourself, about what works and what doesn't work for any future events you do. I'm going to be watching your dot alongside all the other dots. So I'll be excited to hopefully see you back in Emporia with you having completed the full 350.
Yep. That will be
just me. Like I said, remember why you're out there and have that plan, have that plan A and that plan B, and just be ready to adapt. And yeah, man, it's gonna be really cool. And I love that you already have experience from being out there last year, so you have a little better of an idea of what to expect stepping into the 350.
Yep. Yeah, dude. Last year was the most I've ever had on a bike, and so I'm excited to repeat that. So.
Right on. Well, I am gonna go ride my bike.
Oh, dude, go, man. Get out of here. Have fun.
Cool. Right. Take it easy.
Yep.
We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll see you soon. Actually, in a few weeks.
All right.
Man.
Later.
Bye.